Hi, friends, and welcome to Self Meets Soul, a podcast where we discuss how to discover what sets your soul on fire and modern ways to integrate spirituality into your daily life. My name is Juliana, and today we are going to be talking about all things control, losing control so that you are able to really step into your power, step into your just strength, and grow in your spiritual and just personal practices. Now, I actually kind of hesitated on making the title of this Control Freak because I feel like that name is just so negative, so just intense. And there's just a lot of negative connotation behind being called a control freak. And so I thought about it and I was like, well, why is that the phrase? Like, you're a control freak? Because the word freak implies just really big energy that's kind of erratic, and it honestly is a negative thing. Control freaks are unable to let go of what's going on around them and are kind of just unable to relax. And this is a judgment-free zone here. The whole reason, honestly, that I'm doing this episode and that it came to me is because over these last couple months, control has been something that I've really been struggling with. And if you know me personally, you know that this has kind of been a big thing in my life lately. But if you don't, then just to give you a little background, I am your typical type A girl. Everything in my life is in pretty much a neat little box. And I grew up with a family where they were all very type A. My mom, my dad, my sister, all very organized, all very put together. I grew up in a home that was always put together and clean. I was expected to have that. And if you come to my house now, that's how my house always be looking. And I even had someone one time ask me, like, does your place always look like this? And I said yes, because I couldn't fathom living in a place where not everything is where it's supposed to be and looks and smells how it's supposed to look. Just ask my past roommates. And there are a lot of people in my life who do think just like me, who are very type A, and it has brought a sense of comfort in a way because I don't feel as alone or completely irrational. I've had boyfriends who have been pretty much on my same level, so that was always kind of comforting and peaceful to know. But on the flip side of that, I also have friends who aren't maybe at the extreme level that I am, or have dated people who are not like that, and that is really a struggle for me. So if you are someone who looks at your life and you look at all the things that you've accomplished and just how your life is set up, and you're thinking to yourself, well, gee, like, the reason that my life is going the way it is and that I have had all these successes is because I have some aspect of control over my life. Look at these people who don't have control over their life. It's messy, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going, and it just sounds like a miserable place to be. If you're thinking that, then this episode is definitely for you. Because believe it or not, I am here to tell you, much like the word control freak, that controlling everything and having a tight grip on your life, and not even your life, the life of others, because be real with yourself. I'm sure you try to control external factors as well. It is not good for you. It is not good for your personal development, and it is not going to help you become your highest self. And just like many things in life, in order to let go of something or to stop a habit, we first have to understand why we do it. So why do we control? Where does that urge, that tendency come from? The biggest reason, I would say the most common one, that people control is because of anxiety and fear. Okay? Anxiety and fear go hand in hand. If you are anxious about something, it's because you're afraid of something. If you're afraid of something, it's because you're anxious about something. They are the two biggest pair that I definitely struggle with the most, and you might as well. Think about all the moments that you were anxious about something. And I know for me personally, when I'm anxious about things, it's because I don't know what is going to happen. Okay. And when you don't know what's going to happen and that scares you, you're afraid of it, it's because you don't have control over what might happen. This fear and anxiety can come from pretty much any sector of your life. It can come from not knowing how a date's going to go, not knowing what your boss might be thinking. Maybe you're nervous because you messed something up and now you have anxiety about that. It can come from going into a social situation with people that you don't know because you can't control that environment, right? It can come from confronting someone in your life about something that maybe made you feel some type of way because you can't control how they will react to it. There are so many things, big and small, that we get anxious and fearful over because we know that it is something that might be out of our realm of control. I just came back from a retreat. It was a spiritual retreat in northern Arizona, and I have had this on my bucket list for years, okay? And I haven't been able to go because, usually retreats are expensive. So this one was like an affordable one that I could drive to. And honestly, it was set up perfectly. It was all Black women. It was just what I needed for a first experience. And like I said, I had been waiting for this opportunity for years and years and years. It's maybe like at least 5 years, right? The opportunity happened, it came up, and ever since I've done shadow work, I immediately realized that while I was excited, the other predominant emotion behind this was fear and anxiety. And I was like, okay, why am I like nervous? Why am I nervous about this though? Like, what is the reason? You've been waiting for this forever, girl. And I was like, well, because I don't know what to expect. I am going by myself. I'm going to be with a bunch of women who I've never met before in my life. I'm going to be driving to northern Arizona for the first time on my own. There was a lot of things out of my control about how the weekend was going to go. That led to me being a bit anxious and fearful over something that was positive, right? And recognizing these patterns of why you personally tend to want to control things is something that, like I just mentioned, requires that shadow work, requires you to look inward. And honestly, a huge reason why I'm even aware that all of this stuff, even things that happened in my childhood and emotions I felt, why it all leads back to control is because of therapy. When I tell you my therapist be calling me out, I'm telling her about a situation and she's like, how to make you feel? And I tell her how, and I say why I think it might have made me feel that way. She'll always be like, and you know what else this also ties to? Your need to control things. And sometimes I'm like, oh, girl, stop calling me out. But you know what? It's tea because she's right. But all of that is to say that even for positive things in your life, you might get fearful and anxious because you don't have control over the situation, even if it's something that's going to be positive. Let's think about it. People who hate surprises. If you hate surprises, chances are you have some control issues. Why do people hate surprises, even when they're good ones, right? Because they weren't expecting it. They didn't have any control over how the situation went or how it's going to go. We control because we have this anxiety, this fear that when something happens that's undesirable, that it's a crisis. So you have to understand, not everything is a crisis. It can be solved, and sure, it may not get solved when you want it to. It may not get solved in the way that you want it to, but that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. And you got to tell yourself that sometimes, honestly. Another reason that we try to control things is because we have a lack of faith. And I don't mean we don't believe in God or something religious like that, right? Although some people who do believe in that may argue that when you are holding on to stuff and you have a big sense of control, it's because you don't believe that there's that higher power who is in control of things. There's that phrase, let go and let God, which it just makes me laugh because I'm not religious, but I can see what they mean, right? Maybe instead of God, you put in your word of choice, right? So having lack of faith is coming from a place of insecurity. That's kind of what I mean. It means not believing that A, things will work out how it should, and B, that everything that happens to you is a part of your path and a part of your journey to becoming your highest self. Another example I'll give you here is that I have something, and I'm sure I've talked about this in past episodes, but I have something that I've really been working on manifesting since April. And I went through all the phases. I went through doing the manifestation journals, the gratitude, I do the visualizations, all of that. Recently, I've been feeling a little down in the dumps. This is what I mean about I've been struggling with control, because I'm starting to have this mindset as it comes to the time frame, right, of when I want my manifestation to happen, which, by the way, is another way to control, wanting things to happen at a certain time. So I have been struggling with that because I'm starting to feel like, oh, this timeline I've set basically is approaching, and it's not looking like my manifestation will happen based on all of these other factors that I'm not going to get into. I've talked about this with friends, and I know that lack of faith is coming from me not believing the universe will bring this desire of mine into my life at the right time. So therefore, I'm starting to try and control things, and I'm looking around and I'm like, how can I control the situation? What do I need to do to make this happen? And that is such a big thing with controllers. We want to problem solve immediately. You're looking at, okay, well, what rules am I not following? How am I not acting in order to make this happen? You look at things and you think, what is it that I'm doing wrong? And I hate to break it to you, but chances are what you're doing wrong is trying to control the situation. There are certain things that you can do, inspired action, right? As we all know, manifestation isn't just wishing and hoping that something will happen. There have to be action steps as well. But controllers will go onto the other end of the spectrum, and they will try and take too many steps and try and think that they can move all the puzzle pieces around in order for things to happen. And that is when you are over controlling things, because you don't have faith that it is coming for you and it is going to happen to you. And I'm telling you, that is a hard thing to shift. It's so difficult to shift that mindset that you have. And I've been saying for weeks now, I realize I don't have control. I've been doing meditations about it as well to help me lose and get rid of this grip I have on the control aspect of how I'm going to get this manifestation to happen. But it takes time. When you are a controller, you have wired your brain to be that way. You have wired yourself to look at a situation and think, what can I do? What do I need to do in order to fix this or to get what I want? And that's not always a negative thing, right? You need to have that introspection. You need to have that self-awareness to think about what was my influence on this thing that happened. But it goes too far when there really isn't anything that you can do, or you've done all that you can do and you're still trying to find the ways to keep the control. Another reason that we try to control is from past trauma or anger. And just like fear and anxiety, those go hand in hand. When you have unresolved trauma and things that you haven't faced, it is going to make you angry, and no one likes to feel that. Who wants to be angry? Actually, I do know a few people who do like to be angry, mostly because, their nervous system is used to being in that state of emotion and all that. But that's beside the point. Ideally, really, people don't want to be angry. It's not a good feeling. And so in order to get rid of that, you try to control the situation. Think about all the times that someone was driving stupidly on the road and you got annoyed, and so you sped into the next lane and then cut them off. You were expressing control right there. You didn't like what they were doing. You can't control how they drive, but you can control how you react by getting in front of them, and in your head you think, oh, that shows them. But does that ever actually make you feel better? I'll tell you what, because it doesn't make me feel better. What do you get out of that? You don't. Anytime that you have anger or trauma from something, it's because it is coming from an unwanted personal truth, which means it's coming from something inside of you that has not been addressed yet. And so when you haven't addressed those things, you haven't addressed the trauma, you haven't addressed the reason why you get angry over, a certain stimulus, then what's going to happen is that those emotions, that pain, will find external outlets through controlling actions. And this doesn't necessarily have to be like something you inflicted upon yourself, right? Maybe you grew up in a household that was very unstable, that was not emotionally healthy. And so, in order to cope with that, you try to hold on to your life and have control over certain things that you do in order to kind of heal from that trauma. But that doesn't necessarily heal you. Controlling things does not address the root of your problems. And while sometimes even right now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, here are all the times that I tried to control a situation and it did work out in my favor. I did get the job. I did get the apartment. I did get my boyfriend to move in with me. I did get the reaction that I wanted from someone. That only works sometimes, because there are going to be so many other times that doesn't work. The universe has to find balance. So when you tip the scales and you try to take control over something, guess what? The scales are going to flip back in the other direction. You are going to be put in a situation where you don't have control over things. The more you try to control things in your life, the more often the universe is going to throw something at you that is completely out of your control. You get in a car accident, you miss your flight, you lose your job, your boyfriend breaks up with you. There are so many ways that, life just happens to us. And those kinds of situations will pop up more if you are holding on to the grip of control too much. Not only that, but when you control, it actually leads to more worry and anxiety, because now you're so focused, instead of being like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, that's why I'm feeling a little anxious or afraid. Then you shift your mind to, okay, well, what can I do? How can I control this so that I do know what's going to happen, so that I can get the reaction I want, so that I can envision the situation unfolding exactly how I want. You create more anxiety within yourself and more worry because you are thinking so much about what you can hold on to. You also may start to experience resentment from your friends and family and the people around you. When you are a controller, typically you try to also not control just your life, but other people. Things that have nothing to do with you. Why? Because you think you know better. Because this person you love so much and you think you know what's best for them. But the reality of the situation is you can't change others at all. Not one bit. You can't change your parents, you can't change your siblings, you can't change your bestie, you can't change your partner. The only way people change is because they want to. And that is something that you have to accept, because if you don't accept it, then you are going to push people away. Control also kills creativity. Think of all the amazing artists in the world, or the inventors, or the people who accidentally discover things, the scientists. Do you think those things came to fruition because they were following some sort of rule book? No. That came to them in an inspired moment through an intuitive download. Creativity and control do not go hand in hand. This is also why I think in my life I've always said I'm not a creative person, and I've really been getting away from that in the last year or so, because, why did I feel that way? It's because listen to how this ties into control. I have a vision in my head of something, and then when I go to create it, it doesn't look like how I pictured it in my head. So I don't have control over my ability. Of course, you can take art classes and stuff like that, but only to a certain extent, right? I don't have control over my ability to get something to look exactly the way that I envisioned it. So therefore, I just said, well, I'm not a creative person. And something I've noticed is that every time I sit in front of a blank canvas and attempt to create something, there is an immediate sense of anxiety, because I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I'm afraid of how the final product is going to turn out. But thankfully, typically, I have been around people who are also, creating something when this happens, and I allow myself to let go of the control. I don't overthink it. I just start creating. So, like I said, control kills creativity. And it also prevents us from growing and adapting. Sure, maybe you got what you thought you wanted because you exerted your control over something, but who knows what the alternative would have been if you didn't, if you just let go. It could have been something even better than that, but you won't know because you didn't let yourself find out. Facing the unknown and facing challenges without trying to overly control a situation is how you grow and how you adapt. You have to fall into the flow of life and its rhythms in order to reach your higher potential. So when you're too busy holding on to that grip of something, you're not growing, you're staying stagnant. So now we know the risks of holding on to control. So what are the benefits? Like, what are you going to get out of this, okay? Because I know if you are a type A person too, and if you are a controller, you want to know, okay, well, what can I expect? What good things will happen if I lose this control? You'll have new opportunities unfold. Things may just fall into your path, into your life that you would have never expected before. And when you lean into it, instead of trying to control the outcome, you might end up in a situation that's better than you ever imagined. You go from being a controller to being a relinquisher. Oh, doesn't that sound so good? Being able to relinquish something. That means you are able to let go of things. I personally know that I would love to be able to let go of things. And sure, there's some things that I let go of easily, or I'm just like, whatever about. But the more you are able to say, I saw a TikTok about this the other day, like, and it sounds so simple, but there was this girl who was, giving all these situations. She's like, oh, you got a stain on your favorite shirt, and like, wash it. Oh, you're going to be late to work because the barista is taking too long at the coffee shop. And so what? You are able to let go of things, which means you don't have to experience all of these negative emotions. Well, emotions, I should say, that we tend to label negatively so often. When you let go of control, your vision is able to expand. You're able to see things clearly. You're able to look at life through another lens. And that also means that you're able to have more room for fun. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not having fun when I try to have control over everything. When I'm like plotting and scheming on how I'm going to get what I want and what I need to do and the steps I need to take, sure, does it give me a sense of ease because I've programmed myself to need to have this control? So yeah, maybe I feel temporarily better because I feel like I'm doing something, but it's not fun. When I went to Vegas with a friend of mine who is definitely not on this level that I am of control. We were going to the Beyonce concert and we had to meet up with one of her friends. Anyways, the timing was just off. Like, we were ending up being late. And instead of like stressing, like, oh my gosh, we got to call the Uber. How are we going to get there? It's so hot. We got to walk. Well, and maybe, maybe it's also because this was like low stakes for me. It was the Beyonce concert. Like, either way, I was going to get there. But instead of worrying about timing, we kind of ended up, because we had the speaker going, just dancing around the hotel room. And it was so fun. And then her friend called and was like, hey, where are you guys? And we were like, oh no. But we were having so much fun, and that was something that was unplanned. Think about the other moments in your life where you ended up doing something really fun that was unexpected. Those nights where you are out for some reason until like 4 a.m. or something like that, the sun's coming up. Obviously, I mean, for me personally, I don't want to do that. I don't plan to ever be out that late, but the times where I've just let it happen have ended up being really fun. Like I said, all easily said, right? But how do we actually work on losing that control? I'm going to give you a few examples here, and they're just tied to kind of things that we try to control in our everyday life. Walk away from an argument. That is a way to lose control. Are you someone who likes to have the last word? Because I am. I'm raising my hand right here. Are you someone who likes to feel like you won and that you got your point across? Well, the chances are that you will keep an argument going and going and going until you feel like you said what you need to say and that you won it. But try to switch that perspective and think, what if I just walked away? What if I said, you know what? We have differing opinions on this, whatever it might be, and you just walked away. That might make you feel a little tight in your chest, might make you feel a little nervous because you're like, well, how do I know that they took my side then? How do I know that they know I was right? Well, that means you're going to walk away from that without feeling like you won. But there is so much more peace to that. And I'm talking to my past selves, like not just you all. You will find so much more peace from that, because when you win in an argument, at what expense? Now you just maybe ended up saying things that you shouldn't have said, things that will never be unheard. So walk away. Another way to lose control is to do nothing. And I know how simple that sounds, but it's so simple because controllers don't do it. There are so many times where you just try to figure out any possible thing that you can do. Well, lose control by doing nothing. The universe heard you. The universe knows you want this manifestation. You put it in a journal. You visualized it. You took some aligned action steps. But there will come a time, every single manifestation piece that you do, where you need to do nothing. You need to let the universe work its magic. And that can be really hard. So when you feel those moments where you're holding on to something really tightly, you can use some affirmations. Today, I will not resist or persist. Today, I will accept others for who they are. Today, I will just observe and listen. Today, I will accept things as they are. Those are all some good affirmations that can kind of bring you back down, bring you back to the present, and remind you to let go. You also can lower your expectations of yourself and others. A lot of our disappointment comes from these imaginary expectations that we put on us and that we put on other people. So don't have those expectations. Even for your day, right? Have no expectations of the day when you wake up. Try to go with the flow. That is corny, I'm sure, to hear. But it's true, because controllers cannot do that. They don't go with the flow. They try to build the boat. They try to suck the water out of the river. All these things, right? All these things we do to try and control something. You're not going with the flow. Be like water. That is a great reminder too. Another affirmation. Be like water. When you are experiencing anger and you want to control a situation or another person, diffuse that anger through imaginary dialogue or journaling. So honestly, this may sound a little delulu, but if you need to look in the mirror or just sit on your couch or bed or whatever and have an imaginary conversation where you're telling that person off, do it. If you need to journal it, do it. I have gone through my journal that I started in April in an insane amount of time. I'm almost done with it, so I'll have had it for 6 months. I've never gone through a journal this fast, but that is because I'm writing down all of my emotions. Anytime that I'm anxious of a situation, I write it. When I'm feeling sad, I write. When I'm angry, I write. All of these are a better way to relinquish control, because you do end up feeling a bit lighter. Even though you didn't necessarily change the situation by journaling, you almost feel as if you did have a bit of control in a way, because you were able to express those feelings. And if you do all of that and you're still feeling angry or upset or whatever it might be, then forgive. When you're having a controlling reaction to a situation that might be triggered by a piece of trauma, you have to find that forgiveness for yourself, forgiveness for your family, for whatever it might be, in order to move forward. And then you won't feel like you have to control things as much, because it doesn't bother you anymore, because you've chosen to forgive. Also, avoid overanalyzing things. I am notorious for that, and I'm sure most controllers are. Okay, how can I fix this? I've mentioned that so much because that is typically the first thought that comes into a controller's mind over a situation. Analyzing what it is that you need to do, analyzing a situation to see where you went wrong in order to gain control back. Try to avoid overanalyzing it. Let it be. That even means with your emotions sometimes. Done the shadow work this last summer, and when I have emotions come up, now my first question when I notice them is, okay, why? Where is this coming from? But don't go too deep into it. It doesn't need to be a whole well, This reminded me of when I was in third grade, and then Betsy said this to me. And really, like, that just made me so mad. And that's probably why I did this when I was a teenager and why I did this in college. You don't need to go down that whole rabbit hole, right? You can realize and connect why you might be feeling something, why you might feel the need to control, but don't try to go too deep into it, because then you're just focusing on that instead of moving forward. And that also ties into not being deterred if you can't solve something right away. Because when you are upset that something isn't fixed or done or solved in that moment, then you'll start to overanalyze. And all of this means all of these really examples that I just gave fall into focusing on having trust, focusing on having that faith, saying to yourself, oh, I made a mistake at work. I don't know if my boss is mad at me or not, but what I do know is that I have a good relationship with them, so I'm going to trust that it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to this social event where I don't know anyone. I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to trust that I'm going to have fun and it's going to be exactly what I needed. I've been manifesting this desire of mine for a while, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I trust that the universe will bring it into my life at the right place and the right time. So I encourage you in the next week or so, over the rest of your day, whatever it might be, to look at where you're holding on to control in your life and think about why. Where is this coming from? Is it fear, anxiety, trauma, anger? Why do I feel this way? How can I let go of that control? And I promise you, if you are able to do that, you will have so much more fun in life. You will feel so much more at peace and happier. Well, that's all that I have for you today, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review and share it with someone in your life. You never know who might resonate with it. Chat with you later.